dodges. His friend tries to attack as well, but Cain avoids him as well. He makes a fool of them, and the man prepares to draw his sword. But things are stopped, as the red-haired adventurer from earlier appears, and the man recognizes him as Claude, from the Ice Flame party. Claude asks if he wants to fight, and the men run off instead. Cain thanks Claude for his help, and Claude can tell he is strong, seeing the way he avoided the attacks from the men. They have a drink together, and Cain gets juiced since he is still a kid. Claude is interested in how he is so strong at such an age, and Cain tells him he was tutored when he was younger. Cain asks him why the men mentioned Ice Flame, and Claude reveals it's the name of his party, where he fights with a flaming sword, and his wife uses ice magic. He recommends Cain find a party, so that he can take on bigger quests and rank up faster, revealing his gold card, which means he is an A-ranked adventurer. Cain is impressed seeing the card, but Claude says there's room to improve, mentioning that the first king was triple S ranked, and his card was supposedly black. Claude suddenly gets hit, as his wife Lena suddenly appears. She wonders why he is drinking, and Cain introduces himself, saying that Claude saved him. She finds him cute, even offering to help him if he gets into any more trouble, but she drags Claude away, saying they need to get on with their quest. Cain checks out the quest board, and sees one for transporting cargo. He thinks it would be easy with his item box, but he decides he wants a quest that involves defeating monsters. He finds a quest to defeat goblins, and there is no limit to how many he can defeat, so he thinks it's the perfect first quest for him. But he suddenly runs into Tefana, and Dazard explains they are headed out to do some training with the knights. Tefana wonders what he is up to, and Cain says he is about to go on his first quest as an adventurer. Tefana decides to go with him, saying she can't miss her husband's first adventure, and she leaves the training exercise up to Dazard. Cain tries to run, but Tefana grabs him and drags him off. They head into the forest, and Tefana enjoys her time with him, dragging him along and wondering where the goblins are at. Cain uses his search skill, detecting the goblins up ahead, and they see a man surrounded by goblins. They quickly rush to the man, and Cain heals him with his magic. Tefana rushes at the goblins, easily cutting them down, but there are more goblins that appear. Cain uses his magic to boost her strength, and she feels as though they are fighting as one. She easily cuts them all down, but there is a giant goblin that appears. But thanks to Cain's magic, it's no match for her, and she cuts it in half. She starts dreaming about their wedding, asking Cain to praise her, but there are suddenly green lizards that appear. Cain tells her to get away with the man, telling her to leave them to him. He uses his light spell to blind them, and then follows up with his ice pillar. Gigantic ice pillars emerge, and the man wonders what's going on, but Tefana knows it's just Cain being Cain. Sometime later, we see Cain's tutors as they investigate the green lizards, but there is only a huge crater left behind. Cain reports to the guild, and he wonders if he can hand in the green lizards, even though he didn't take the quest. Tia is shocked to hear this, because a green lizard quest is usually C-ranked, and Cain reveals that he defeated 30 of them. Tia can't believe it, and she rushes to the chief, and tells him what happened. The chief meets with Cain, introducing himself as Cedric, mentioning that the guild master is busy, so he is handling his case. He thinks Cain is trying to cheat the system, because he only just registered as an adventurer, and he thinks it would be impossible for him to kill a green lizard. Cain insists that he beat them, but Cedric thinks he is just a peasant trying to cheat the guild out of the reward money. He decides to punish Cain by revoking his guild card, saying that he doesn't tolerate cheaters, but the guild master suddenly enters. Cedric explains the situation, saying there is no way Cain could have defeated 30 green lizards. But the guild master laughs, telling Cedric there is much for him to learn. Cedric can't believe he is siding with Cain, but the guild master calls in his guest, which turns out to be Tefana. She hugs onto Cain, calling him her husband, while Tia and Cedric are shocked to hear this. Cain wonders what she is doing at the guild, and she explains she was there to discuss the city's countermeasures against goblins and green lizards. The guild master mentions that Cain is a baron and the hero who saved the princess, but Cedric can't believe it, saying there was no mention of it on his registry form. But Cain says he left it out, because he didn't want any special treatment. The guild master mentions that if Cain marries Tefana, then he will also be his brother-in-law, which is a shock to Cain, learning that he is Tefana's brother. Cedric begs for forgiveness, and Tefana mentions he should be executed for insulting a noble, but Cain accepts his apology, warning him not to assume things so quickly. Cain asks if they will take his green lizards, and the guild master decides to promote him to C rank. But Tefana says it's not enough, mentioning how he is stronger than her, and even defeated a red dragon when he was 10, so the guild master decides to make him A rank instead, although he mentions that Cain will need to subjugate some bandits. Tia and Cedric can't believe he is being promoted to A rank in a single day, and the guild master tells them to handle the paperwork. After they leave, the guild master apologizes for Cedric's behavior, but Cain tells him not to worry. The guild master admits he was worried when he heard his sister got engaged, but he is relieved after meeting him, and he tells him to take care of his sister. Meanwhile, we see the gods watching him, laughing at all the trouble he's causing. They wonder if it was a mistake to make him so strong, but Xenom says he needs to get even stronger, revealing that a being named Aaron is about to be released from his seal. He was sealed away 300 years ago, and the gods fear what will happen when he gets free. So they think Cain needs to get even stronger, thinking he needs to train with a certain master to reach the next level. Back at the palace, the girls ask to study with him again, but Tefana suddenly enters, saying she enjoyed their date in the forest, and that they should go to the beach next time. So the girls realize that he turned them down the other day, only to end up on a date with Tefana instead. They tell him he needs to take them on dates as well, and all he can do is apologize to them. We see Cain in bed, as Sylvia bursts in, apologizing because she forgot to wake him up, and we learn that today is the day of his academy entrance exams. Cain rushes out the door, as Sylvia continues to apologize, but he tells her not to worry, because he's not going to be late. As he gets outside, he uses a teleportation spell to get to the academy. He checks in for the exam, and he is given directions to his room. As he heads over, he finds it strange he doesn't recognize anyone on the list. When he gets to the room, he wonders if Telestia and Silk are taking the exam in another room. The examiner comes in, and tells them they have 2 hours to complete the test, warning them that any cheaters will be immediately removed. The test begins, and it's just basic math and writing skills, which Cain finds easy, thanks to his knowledge from his previous life. During the test, the examiner sees him relaxing, but he says he is already finished, which surprises her because it's only been 30 minutes. After the test ends, they are told they will be moving on to the magic assessment, which gets Cain excited. They head out into the courtyard, and the examiner tells them they are to use their strongest spell at the target. Cain wonders if it will be okay to use his full power, and the examiner tells him the area is protected by a defensive barrier, so he can use any magic that he wants. We see a boy as he starts to chant and create a fireball, but it's so weak that it surprises Cain. Another student goes, and she is just as weak, making Cain realize that this is the level that most 12-year-olds are at. He was planning to use his Inferno spell, but realizes that would probably be a bad idea. When it's his turn, he creates a fireball which turns blue, and uses a fire bullet spell, but it ends up causing a huge explosion, blasting right through the wall. There is massive damage to the area, and Cain is confused, because he only used a beginner-level spell. The examiner can't believe her eyes, as Cain tries to explain himself. The examiner checks the area, and tells them to move on to their swordsmanship exam. They move to another part of the academy, where the examiner introduces some A-rank adventurers who are there to help assess them. Cain is surprised to see Claude, who wonders what he is up to, and Cain explains he is taking the entrance exam. Claude wants to be his opponent, but Cain tries to decline. However, the examiner says that Claude is the highest ranked adventurer, so he can't refuse. The two prepare to fight, and Claude tells him to show him what he can do. Cain thinks he should be pretty strong since he is A-ranked, so he uses his boost skill and starts to attack. The two start to exchange blows, and the other kids can't believe how fast they are moving. Claude is impressed by Cain, saying he is stronger than the other examiners, but Cain tells him to take it easy, since it's just a test. But Claude gets too excited, using his own boost skill, and they start moving even faster. But their fight gets interrupted as the examiner tells them to stop, saying they are scaring the other kids. Claude thinks they went a little overboard, and decides to call it for the day, but tells Cain they should go on a quest together sometime, but Cain isn't sure that's a good idea. The examiner says he has seen enough and tells Cain to go home and wait for the results. He heads back home, and Sylvia wonders how he did. He says everything went well, and Sylvia wants to have a party to celebrate. He says it's still too early to celebrate, but his stomach growls, and Sylvia rushes off to prepare him some food. At the palace, we see Cain as he is questioned by the king about the damage that he caused. Cain explains how the examiner told him he could use his full power since there was a barrier, but even though he only used beginner magic, instead of his new emperor level magic, it still caused massive damage. The king is surprised he can use emperor level magic, but Cain says he's not sure what would happen to his surroundings if he used it, asking if there is anywhere he could practice, but they tell him absolutely not. The king goes on to ask him where he took his exam, because Telestia complained that she didn't see him during the exam. Cain mentions how he checked in at the south entrance and was directed to his room. Upon hearing this, the king asks him why the academy has a north and south entrance, causing Cain to realize his mistake, because the north entrance leads to where the nobles live, and he ended up taking the exam with all the commoners instead. The Duke mentions how this even caused a problem with the academy headmaster, as we see in a flashback, the headmaster telling him there is a problem with releasing the results, because a commoner got a perfect score on the written exam, as well as destroying the training area, and fighting on equal footing with an A-ranked adventurer, but the Duke just laughs hearing this, knowing it could only be Cain, and tells the headmaster to release the results. At the academy, the results are released, and Cain looks for his name. Silk calls out to him, telling him he is at the top of the class, while Telestia is second, and she is in third place. She teases him about the damage he caused, and tells him how Telestia was mad she didn't see him, making him worried he is in trouble. He suddenly sees his sister Rain, who is guiding some other students. She rushes over to him, overjoyed to see him. She is impressed he is the top of his class, and wishes him luck on his speech, saying that it's tradition for the top scoring student to give a speech at the entrance ceremony. Cain wishes Telestia could do it instead, but Rain tells him he doesn't have a choice. Cain returns home, and Sylvia is overjoyed to learn he passed, saying they need to celebrate, and that she will cook enough food to feed 100 people. She rushes off, and Cain thinks she is going overboard, but he thinks it's a good occasion to be happy. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Cain sees that his parents have come to watch him. He is joined by Telestia and Silk, charming them instantly, as they think he looks cute in his uniform. As the ceremony begins, the other students wonder who he is, jealous that he's sitting between the two girls. The headmaster calls Cain up to give his speech, and he introduces himself, mentioning how he got his exam mixed up, but looks forward to becoming friends with everyone, hoping they can all get along, and all the students cheer for him. The king comes out to congratulate all the students, mentioning certain irregular students, and Cain feels like he is being warned by the king. They get to their first class, and their homeroom teacher introduces herself as Elka. She tells them to think about their future and choose what they plan on studying. Cain wants to go for adventuring, but the girls object. Telestia says that since he is already a baron, he needs to learn more about being a noble. Cain gets upset, but Silk tells him he can choose more than one course. So Cain decides to go with nobility, adventuring, and magic. He asks what they are going to choose, and Telestia says she will pick nobility and internal affairs. Cain wonders why she is picking internal affairs, but she mentions how she wants to help him manage his domain in the future. Silk decides on nobility and commerce, wanting to also be useful to him in the future. As they leave their class, Cain sees some bullies picking on a girl. He notices her ear, and realizes it's Parma from the item shop. The bullies turn out to be Habit and his boys, and they bully her for being a beast, saying she doesn't belong in their class, since they are all nobles. But Cain steps in, saying nobles and commoners are equals at the school. Habit doesn't care, but soon realizes he is talking to Cain, remembering their past encounter. The boys wonder why he is siding with a commoner, when he is a noble himself, but Cain says he is just siding with his friend. Habit threatens to tell his father to ruin Parma's family, but the girls approach, causing the boys to get on their knees and apologize. They are forced to apologize to Parma, and they quickly get away. Parma thanks Cain for his help, but the girls suddenly wonder about his relationship with her, making Cain kneel as they have a chat with Parma. He gets worried they are forming an alliance, but he suddenly hears a voice, telling him to visit the library. Cain decides to check it out, but as he opens the door, it leads to another space, and he is teleported to a room where he meets a man, who asks him if he wants some coffee. Cain demands to know who he is, wondering how there is coffee in this world, but the man says he has been waiting for him, calling him Kazuya, his name from his previous life. The man introduces himself as Yuya, and Cain recognizes him as the first king. He remembers the book he read, but remembers it was written more than 300 years ago, so he wonders if he is a ghost. But Yuya just laughs, and tells him he can check his stats. Cain opens up his status window, and is shocked when he sees he has the God of Creation title. Yuya explains they are in another world that he created, so he is considered a god, and maintains his appearance even after 300 years. He goes on to explain how he spoke with Xenom, and how the other gods wanted him to help with his training. Cain thinks he is already too strong, so Yuya tells him to take a cookie from him. Cain gives it a go, but Yuya easily stops him, saying he has a long way to go. Cain wonders why he needs to get stronger, and Yuya reveals he needs to fight Aaron, the evil god. He explains that 300 years ago, Aaron made people all over the world fight and kill each other, by using an oracle, sowing distrust in everyone's subconscious and making them fight. But together with his companions, they managed to seal him away, but the seal has since loosened, and he will soon be resurrected. Cain asks why he can't just seal him again, but Yuya says since he became a god, he can no longer directly interfere in the world, just like the other gods. Yuya also mentions that Cain's previous life is important, but they suddenly teleport to the sea. Yuya throws him a sword, and says he will tell him more if he can complete his training. He gives him a compass to follow, which he says will lead him back to the house where they were. He tells Cain to level up, saying he would need to get to at least 600 to stand a chance against Aaron. Cain thinks it will take forever, since he is only around level 300, so he worries about missing school. But Yuya tells him that 1 year in this world is equal to only 1 day in the other world. Yuya wishes him luck and disappears, and Cain realizes he has no other choice, so he starts heading back to the house. As he enters the forest, he is instantly attacked by a range of deadly monsters. Meanwhile, in the other world, Telestia and Silk pay a visit to Cain's mansion, wondering about Cain because he didn't go to school. Sylvia also gets worried, thinking he could be in some kind of trouble, but Telestia has faith in him, and decides to stay over and wait for him to return. We see Cain as he is caught by a beast, and is completely exhausted, but he manages to blast it with his magic, falling to the ground. We learn he has already spent months in the forest, and he wonders if he will ever get back. He suddenly hears a cry, and he gets up out of instinct, dragging himself over to the sound, and he finds an injured beast lying on the ground. He thinks about putting it out of its misery, but as he is about to do it, he suddenly remembers how he always just wanted to protect someone, so he forces himself to use all the magic that he has to heal the beast. But this ends up causing him to pass out. The beast protects him from the other monsters, and when Cain wakes up, it jumps on him and starts licking him. Thinking that it's also all alone,